Okay, so we're going to go ahead and get started. The streaming should start in just a moment. Just wanted to let everybody know, unfortunately, I need to leave at 1:30 today, so my apologies when you see me hustling out to go to my apologies. I need to leave at about 1:30 today, so when you see me hustling out, just know I had another meeting, and Grant will carry on after I leave, although he too.
Yeah. So, hello, good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for being here. We're going to try and adjust the volumes on the mics, but I have to leave also at 2:30. It's a busy time for us right now. But when I leave, if the meeting is still going on, Diane Stanton, who's back here, our External Affairs Director, will take my place moderating. So, and without further ado, because Joycelyn also has an impacted schedule, Joycelyn's going to give us the update on state and federal legislation.
Thank you, Grant. Good afternoon. Hope everybody is enjoying their lunch or enjoyed their lunch. I'm going to start with the goldenrod that's in your packet, the matrix. And there's actually only a few bills to really give you an update on at this point in time. A lot of them have already been stalled in committee or maybe aren't moving forward this year. So the first one I'm going to talk about is on page 1, AB 2052. That's one of our sponsored bills that is requiring employers to submit contributions via electronic funds transfer. And there is a waiver provision in that bill. We talked about it last time you were here. It is made its way to the Senate. It's moving through smoothly. We've not heard anything from the different stakeholders. So again, it's on the first page of your matrix, the goldenrod that you have, AB 2052. Yes, and there's also the analysis is in your packet as well, but I was just kind of moving down the list. And it's posted on our website on CalSTRS.com. So it's been moving through on consent so far. It'll be up in the Senate PE&R committee on May 14th. And I anticipate it will keep moving along smoothly. On page 2, the next bill I'm going to go to is SB 964, which you probably have a somewhat less interested in your positions at the school districts, but maybe personally. This has to do with climate-related financial risk reporting on our investments. And this bill, SB 964, is actually going to our board in May, so next week, and the staff recommendation right now is to take a neutral position on that. But that's the one bill they'll be acting on next week. Otherwise, I'll be providing them with an update similar to what I'm giving you today. And I think most importantly then is to move to SB 1165, our housekeeping bill. And the analysis is in your packets as well, and you might want to follow along on that. And what's in your packets, I believe, is the introduced version. So it was introduced February 14th, 2018. You'll see that at the top. And the bill has actually been amended already. And I just want to let you know about those updates and what we're seeing going forward. And I know I went through several of these provisions with you last time, but I'm happy to answer any questions that have come up. But the section that's been amended out is section 22502, which has to do with the membership, mandatory membership and the thresholds for that. And what we're doing is we're working with staff at the legislature on that provision. And so in order to have it continue moving, and that bill is on the Senate floor right now on the consent calendar, we remove that provision so that we can work behind the scenes on it and see if we're able to get it amended back into the bill this year. But I think more likely than not, that provision, along with several of the other membership provisions, will actually take out of the bill, because I think we've gotten some feedback from you and others in the employer community about what's currently in the bill, and we're going to keep working on it to make sure we're going in the right direction. So you will see at least one more set of amendments, and like I said, I think it's likely that we'll remove other related membership provisions, and I'll go through what I think matters to you and that will remain in the bill right now, but I wanted to give you a heads up on that. I think the other pieces of the amendments that you'll see next time, they're correcting drafting errors, and there are things more on the member side. So post-retirement option changes and DBS annuity changes when members move from a disability allowance to service retirement. So a little less impact on your side of things. But if you go to page 4, of the analysis. So kind of everything, and on page 4, the first underlined phrase is eligibility for a retirement system election. Kind of everything before that are those membership provisions that I'm anticipating will come out of the bill that we'll continue to work on and hopefully have in a bill next year. And so the first one I want to talk about is the eligibility for retirement system election. And this has to do with PERS elections. And if a CalSTRS member is electing to have their position covered by CalSTRS when it should be covered by a different retirement system, we're looking at clarifying that it has to be for each position that they take on. So there would be an election at each point in time to indicate that they want that position covered by CalSTRS. The next provision you see there is final compensation for concurrent retirement, and that has to do with making sure that our members are treated equitably. If they have full final compensation available from their CalSTRS assignment, then we'll use that. If they're also retiring from CalPERS, let's say, and they have missing months, we're able to use that in doing their final compensation as well. But sometimes we have a full year, even though they may have only worked 10 months, obviously as a teacher, that we can use in that final compensation calculation. So I think, again, on the next page 5, these two provisions will have more effect on the employer community. The first one is pretty straightforward, although it may sound complicated. Our current definition of school year has 2 definitions. So it's a fiscal year, so July 1 to June 30th, and plus it seems to refer to a school term of sorts, or school year, I think, which could be the school term. We added a definition of school term last year or the year before, and that has to do with what's required for the position. So when's the start date during the year and when's the end date? So teachers probably have a later start date than administrators maybe, who may work July 1 to June 30th. So that's school term. School year is a fiscal year, the whole year, July 1 to June 30th. So we're making sure there's one clear and uniform definition of school year, and then there's one definition of school term, if you will, which could vary depending on the position in the district, the actual dates. And then we're making conforming changes to make sure we're using the right terms throughout the law so that we can keep it straight. It was a bit confusing for us to have 2 definitions for one term. On the membership election cleanup, so this is one we had a lot of feedback on last year from, I think, provisions that were changed the year before that. So this has to do with the permissive election form and the submission deadline. And so as you know, it was 30 days. It was changed to 30 days from the signature date, and we are moving it to 60 days based on what we had heard back from you, and that it takes a bit longer to get all the signatures necessary. And it also says that the membership can be established as early as the first day of the pay period of the member signature date, to clarify that. And actually then, if you go to the next page, all of these are more connected to survivor benefits and disability benefits. And so I think that those are the provisions that really are affecting the employer side of things. So I'm happy to take questions. And unfortunately, like Grant mentioned, I do have to leave at 2 o'clock today, so I won't be around afterwards, but feel free. I believe my information is actually at the end of the analysis, and Samantha and John are also on there, so if you do have questions, you can get in touch with us via phone or email. Okay, great. Thank you.
Is it you next, Pension Solution? Okay. Thank you, Joycelyn. And we have David Lamro, one of our system actuaries, coming to give you an update on the valuation.
Perfect. Good afternoon, everyone. Nothing better than to have an actuary come talk to you right after lunch. I promise to make it as painless as possible. What I wanted to do, so every year in May is sort of kind of when we present a lot of information to our board with respect to where we stand funding-wise, where contribution rates are heading, and what we thought we would do is just give you a little preview of all of the items that we're going to present to our board next week on Thursday. The first thing, sometimes I like to make sure you're paying attention to me here. Just a little question. How many of you were aware that our board lowered what we call our investment return assumption last year? So some hands, okay? So when we set how much money is needed for the funding of the system, one of the most important assumptions is what we expect to earn on our assets when we invest. And in February of 2017, our board decided to lower this assumption from 7.5% to 7%. But to sort of, if you want, ease the pain on all the various groups, the decision was made to do it over 2 years. So we'd just like to remind everyone that this year is the year that we are going from 7.25% to 7%. Now, for the employer committee, for you, it doesn't have any impact per se because the contributions are currently set in statute. But it will have an impact on the members, and I'll show you that shortly. So the key here that we just want people to be aware is, so next week when we present the results to the board, as a result of that lowering of the assumption, what it generally does is it's going now we're going to reassess how much we think we need to fund the system, and it's pushing all of our liabilities higher because now we expect to earn less on assets. And for the first time ever in the history of CalSTRS, we're going to be reporting an unfunded liability that exceeds $100 billion. So we're going to be reporting it as $107 billion. And we're reporting our funded status at about 63%. This is what we will show the board next week. So I don't know if it's going to get some coverage in the media, but you know, 100 billion is a number that we wouldn't be surprised gets quoted in the news. And if you hear, you know, if you're wondering, is the funding plan working? When the funding plan was passed, the amount was lower. It is working. We're still scheduled to pay it off by 2046, but it won't kind of start going down until, like, as employers, your contribution rate has reached the highest amount because we're gradually increasing them. So basically, $107 billion is the unfunded liability that we're going to report. The key for you also to, if you're wondering like how much of it is the employer's responsibility, we have a funding plan where the rules are set in statute. They're not set by our board. They were set in statute. And when we apply those rules, it makes the employers responsible for about 2/3 of this amount. So $71 billion is the responsibility of the employers. So all these increases in contribution rates that are coming your way as set in statute, they've been set to those levels in order to eliminate this $71 billion of unfunded liability that's been assigned as the responsibility of the employers. And the state is about $35 billion of that responsibility. So that's kind of where we stand today. Any questions on this? I just wanted to give you a little reminder of what's coming your way, set in statute. So again, when the funding plan was passed, in order to allow all the employers and everyone to prepare for higher increases, the increases were phased in over a 7-year period. So we're kind of halfway through that period. This year, you're paying about 14.43% to CalSTRS. July 1st, it's going to go up to 16.28, and you can see how it's going to go to 18.13, and then ultimately 19.1. And then beyond that point, this is when our board, for the first time ever, will be able to adjust the employer contribution rate for you. So, and I'll show you shortly where we expect that to go beyond 2021. Member rate. So, how many of you are familiar with PEPRA? If I say PEPRA, it rings a bell for most of you. The Public Employee Pension Reform Act of 2013 that sort of added a new provision in it that now says that the members subject to PEPRA pay is supposed to be linked to the cost of the benefit. So for about a year now, we've been trying to tell folks, and hopefully you've all been aware, if I tell you the member rate for the PEPRA folks is going to increase on July 1st, for how many of you is it a surprise? Are you hearing this for the first time? No hands. Good. Perfect. So we've been trying to prepare everyone for this, that this is coming. So on July 1st, we expect that you will see the contribution rate for the 2 at 62 members increase by 1% of salary. And it's going to go up to 10.205%. Again, this is the result of the rules that were put into place by statute by PEPRA. When you combine the fact that now with the fact that we've lowered our investment return assumption to 7%, it's making the cost of the benefit more expensive, and it's making the triggers that were set by PEPRA to kick in, and it's requiring the 2 at 62 members to pay 1% more. So as employers, it will be interesting now because you will have two groups of employees, the PEPRA and the pre-PEPRA, or 2 at 60 members, that will pay almost exactly the same amount. The classic members of the 2 at 60 pay 10.25%, and now the PEPRA employees will pay 10.205. So almost identical contribution rates, different benefit levels. But those are the rules that were put into place by PEPRA. So that's coming. And we've been doing a lot of, starting a year ago, we did a lot of communications through employer circulars, newsletters. Hopefully you all saw the employer circular that we mailed late in March about the upcoming increase. We have an article going out in our member newsletter in May, I think in a week or so. So hopefully we're trying to prepare to make sure that all of your employees are aware that this is coming. And I believe we're going to try to also do some kind of a mass email to those that are registered about this as well. So we're trying to reach as many people as we can to make sure they know that it's coming. And just to give you an idea, as of last July, we had about 82,000 people in our system that were subject to the 2 at 62 formula. And based on what we've seen so far this year, we think that there'll be close to 100,000 teachers, active employees that will have to pay 1% more. So we're talking about close to 25% of our membership. We have about 450,000 active teachers. So that's kind of what you're looking at. 100,000 of our members are going to have to pay more starting July 1st. Probably the one thing I need you to pay attention today to this is if you're wondering where your contribution rates are going to go down in the future, what we're going to be telling our board next week is once the rate set in statute reaches 19.1%, the first year after that, our board will be able to adjust it up or down. And right now, based on what we see, we would expect that the board would lower that contribution rate. And long term, we're looking at a rate at about 18.1% is what we kind of see for you as employers, based on what we see today. So the 19.1, once it reaches the maximum, we would expect it to go down after that. So starting in the spring of 21, that's when our board will first have the authority to adjust employer contribution rate. So our intent is every year when we kind of look at where we are, where we do the assessment, we're going to make sure that we communicate to you to let you know where that, how is that picture looking year after year, because it's going to change slightly from year to year, depending, for example, on how well we do with our investments. So that's something to keep in mind. These numbers are not set, and they're subject to adjustments from year to year. But the one thing to remember, if you're not familiar with our funding plan, our board has limitations as to what they can do with respect to contribution rates. We can never adjust them by more than 1% in a given year. And we can also never increase it to more than 20.25%. So even if our board wanted to go higher because there was a need to, we wouldn't be able to go more than 20.25%, which I believe is much lower than if you've seen any projections coming from CalPERS, they're slowly creeping up toward 30%. So ours, by statute, cannot increase to more than 20.25%. So there's a cap imposed by statute. Any questions on any of this so far? I know I'm throwing a lot of information to you right after lunch, but feel free to. And the main thing we like to remind folks is the reason why these contribution rates are increasing is our goal is to be 100% funded in the future. And the target set in the funding plan is 2046. And if you look at that blue line there, we are scheduled to hit it. And what we want to remind everyone is if somehow someone were to say, let's put back the contribution rates to where they were prior to the funding plan, we would still be projected to run out of money by 2045. That's the little red line you see on that chart. So that's, if someone ever asks you, like, why are these contribution rates increasing? It's necessary for the long-term viability of the system. If we did not, because of where we are today funding-wise, we would go back toward that downward trajectory. And I'll skip this one. Just one last little thing. I don't know. Any of you familiar with our defined benefit supplement and cash balance program? I'm assuming you are slightly. So those programs are kind of work totally differently than the defined benefit program. But every year we also do an assessment as to where they are financially, how well funded they are. And this year we are reporting that both programs are at least 120% funded. So very healthy situation. And our board has actually policies in place as to what should we do when there's a surplus in those programs. And they have the ability to grant what we call an additional earnings credit. If I use that word, does it ring a bell to any of you, additional earnings credit? It's where our board can just increase the value of the account. And so this year, when we apply our board policy, one of the discussion they're going to have, we're going to be asking them to consider adopting what we call additional earnings credit, where they will simply. So if you're not familiar with DBS and cash balance, those almost look more like a 401k plan. As an employee, you have an account balance. And then when we have surplus in that program, what the board can do at CalSTRS is simply provide a one-time bonus to these accounts. So what they're going to be considering this year is like close to a 4% bonus, if you want. So if someone had $10,000 in their account balance in DBS, if the board approves this, then we would add $400 in their account, 4%. That's what the board will be considering. So the board will be considering this next week when we meet with them. And then the rest of the item we're going to have next week, any of you, if I say SBMA or Supplemental Benefit Maintenance Account, does that ring a bell? It's our, we have an inflation protection program at CalPERS. Generally, employers, you don't have to worry too much about it because it's something that's fully funded by the state. So the state sends additional contribution just to pay for this. Our board will have discussion around the SBMA program next week over the inflation protection level. Currently, for teachers, the inflation protection level is set at 85%. So the board will have discussion over whether or not, because the board can adjust the level to anywhere between 80 and 85. So they'll be talking about this. They'll be talking about options. So if you're interested next week, I will say watch the board meeting. But again, from a financial commitment perspective, from your perspective, this is something that's fully funded by the state. So it's not something that would ever impact your contribution rate. And then next week, we expect the board to also have discussion over what we call a lump sum debt benefit, and to have discussions over, we're going to ask them to adopt what we do every year, the interest rates that are used to credit interest in the defined benefit accounts, the defined benefit supplement account, the cash balance. All of these discussions take place every year in May. So we'll have a very busy meeting next week. And basically from what I see as the two biggest decisions that the board will make next week is we're going to ask them to adopt a 0.5% of payroll increase to the state contribution rate, because our board is able to adjust it. That's to help pay the state's unfunded liability, their share of the unfunded liability. And we're going to have them adopt a new normal cost for the 2 at 62 members, which will then trigger that increase to the 2 at 62 members we talked about. So all of that will happen next Thursday. So if you have any questions, let me know. I've thrown a lot of information to you after lunch, but basically the main thing for you, remember, your rate is set in statute for the next 4 fiscal years, and then we would expect it to go down after that based on what we see today. Vina.
I mean, the good part is meeting is after lunch. That's the good part, because we don't have to understand a whole lot.
Good.
You said they will get a bonus of whatever 4.5%, and if it goes through everything, it will be in this year, 2018-19.
It will be granted. So it will be applied to the amount of money they had in their account balance as of July 1st, 2017, is how the board does it.
Okay,
So
but employers won't be involved in
you're
anything.
not.
It will
And,
just go
and
to
it's
their
not like
account.
we pay anything as well. It's just something. It's almost as if your 401k provider added $400 to your, as an example, added money to your 401k balance. And then when you retire, then that money can be used.
Because they cannot see it on the screen what is DBS amount.
No,
and
they can see the
So
value of their
they will-
DBS account balance.
so they will be able to see
Correct. So
increase
they-
in that
yes,
balance.
once I know it will take us probably a few months so that it shows up in their balance. So they will be able to see that it went up by X dollar because the board granted.
Okay.
And it's not the first time the board did that. We did not do it last year, but 2 years ago the board did an additional earnings credit. So it happens. It's been happening every few years on average.
Okay. Thank you.
So this wouldn't be the first time.
Okay. Thank you.
Question in the back.
Thank you, Paul Orapella from San Juan Unified School District. A couple questions. On slide 3, you have the funded status of 16 at 63.7, and then at the end of 17 at 62.6. What do you anticipate the June 30th, 2018 rate to be? Are we stabilizing, growth, up, down?
No, so the main reason why it went down a little bit was because we're now reflecting the lower investment return assumption our board adopted. So we went from 7.25 to 7, so it pushed it down. And as we showed on this chart here, from that point forward, you can, if you look at the blue on the chart I have on the screen, it's going to gradually increase, probably not substantially up front, like maybe 1% a year at a time. So it's going to be slow growth. But we would expect it to be maybe 64% next year.
64, okay. Thank you very much. And then the other question is on slide 7, I believe it is. You had the breakdown of the 2% at 62 and the 2% at 60 at 82% in 2017 and 18% in the weather group. And then you mentioned the number 25. So is that we're saying about 7% a year is moving from the 60 group to the 62 group?
Well, that's what we expect will happen this year, correct?
Okay, thank you.
Yes. But what we've been telling folks is don't expect it will grow at 7% a year. It's going to start slowing down shortly. So I think what we've been telling people is like we've seen a very fast growth in the number of members subjected to at 62 because everyone that has left membership the last 5 years has been replaced with someone that's now subject to PEPRA. Now we're starting to see teachers early in their career deciding to go through a different career choice, and they were already PEPRA, and now they're being replaced by another 2 at 62 member. So that's why now we would expect that growth to start slowing down over time. Like, don't think it's going to increase again by, like, we don't expect to have 5 years from now 200,000 2 at 62 PEPRA members. It's going to start slowing down.
But it shouldn't slow down that much. It'll be probably down to 5%.
Yeah, probably something like that.
Something
correct.
like that.
Yes.
That's what I was.
Because we still have a lot of people retiring every year and so forth. Yeah.
Right, and the majority of our retirees are going to be at the 60 mark.
Correct, exactly.
And the majority of our new people are all going to be at the 62.
Pretty much all are, yes.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. Good. Thank you. And I think this has died on me.
Oh, it has?
Yes, so you have to use your finger. I realized it was not moving anywhere. Thank you.
Okay, always a tall order to follow the actuary, but I will do my best. So I'm Andrew Roth. I am the Benefits and Services Executive Officer for CalSTRS. I'm also the co-sponsor for our Pension Solution Project. You've heard us give a number of updates, and so we recently had a schedule shift, and our board voted to extend the contract for our system integrator for an additional 2 years, so we wanted to come in and present some new information, especially as it relates to all of you. So if at any point during the presentation you have questions, please raise your hands and jump in. Somebody will run the microphone over. I want to talk a little bit, give you some background information, which most of you probably already know, and then talk a bit about the project, our phased approach, what we see as impacts to the employer community, and then just some final updates. So the information here is pretty self-explanatory. The two things that I noticed in looking at this slide were that the percentage of our membership that is female has increased slightly in the last few years to 72% from 70% when I joined CalSTRS in 2012. And then our, of course, monthly payroll is also continuing to grow. It was only a few years ago that we hit $1 billion a month, and now we're at $1.2 billion a month. So lots of volume on the payroll side. So as most of you have heard before, our current legacy pension administration system is sort of nearing the end of its useful life. And so we, spent several years developing requirements, going out, selecting an off-the-shelf product called NeoSpin, and we're currently in the process of implementing that. This is kind of a solution to our business problem of how to adapt to the changing legislation, the GASB requirements, all the kinds of things that we as a pension system need to be able to address in our automated system. And at this point, one of the biggest changes that recently has happened is we've extended our schedule. So we anticipated being done with this project in the 2021 fiscal year, and now we're anticipating being done in the 22-23 fiscal year. Something that I, as a co-sponsor, have done a lot of in the last couple of years, and especially in the last year, is talk to folks in other systems, other pension systems, about their implementations, just to kind of get a sense for, what's normal, how do these things work in large pension systems, and have learned a lot about when a pension fund as big as CalSTRS with almost 1 million members implements a new automated system, the kinds of things that you can expect. And one of the number one things I learned is typically it takes longer than you think it's going to. So hence the recent schedule extension that our board approved. And in terms of the benefits of this system, in addition to being able to better serve our members and members having greater access to information and online, the ability to do things themselves online, we also see greater functionality for our employers. We are seeing that we'll be able to give you better views, better snapshots. You'll have more ability to do things in the new system. So that's one of, again, the main drivers for why we're implementing this. And in terms of what the specific impacts are for the employer community, when we talk about reporting requirements are going to be different. So I think a number of you have participated in our employer forums. You're familiar with the concept of the new file format. And I know that we've talked to you about some of the new fields that we'll be requiring and the new data that for example, GASB requirements, mandate or necessitate that we have a view into. So there's a lot of information that we're going to be gathering. The good news is most of that information you already give to CalPERS. There are some other fields that will be new and a little bit different, but we have to go through a real process to make sure that's finalized. And so, again, if you want more information, please tune into the employer forums that we have on a regular basis, because as soon as we're able to share information and as soon as we know what we're going to go through the, for example, regulatory process with, then we can start to share more specifics with you. And we're going to have someone come up in a moment and talk a little bit about that regulatory process. Again, with the improved employer self-service, one of our main goals for this system is that the employer community will have greater access to tools in terms of seeing reports and seeing what you've sent to CalSTRS, where it's at in the process, so that there's a little bit more visibility and ability for you to manage your own account. Again, we're still a ways away from implementing everything, so in terms of what's final and for certain, I don't have that information yet, but we will continue to roll that out. In terms of the impacts to the business and technology staff and your workplaces, we're going to be providing training for payroll staff as we get closer to implementation. And so one of the new changes that we've got is, so we know that we approved a 2-year extension. So employer functionality will become available in 2019 is currently the goal. And so that's next year, and we're calling that a soft launch or an employer readiness environment. And so what that means is the new file format, the new kind of secure employer website environment will be available. We're not expecting that all employers are going to immediately start utilizing that. We're going to be reaching out and trying to set up different pilot groups to come in and use the functionality, get used to it, see how it works, and get used to what the new reporting requirements are. And again, the employer forums have a lot of this kind of information, and as we get closer to 2019, we'll be able to provide much more specific information with dates attached to it. And then we'll also, in that period between now and go live in 2019, late 2019, we'll be talking about what those new file formats could potentially look like and what possible technology changes would be required on your end. And I know that the payroll providers, for example, have been a part of our employer forum and our employer readiness activities. So I talked a little bit about that phased approach. That still is something that we're working toward. So you heard us talk about, we have the employers in our first release, the members and the member benefits are the second phase, and then that final phase is kind of our customer service contact center functionality. What we've shifted to slightly is we're still going live in 2019 with the employer functionality. However, that, again, is not going to be mandated. So, you heard some actuarial terms. I'll use a technical term. It's a non-production production environment. And what that means is that we're going to create that employer readiness environment, but not everybody's going to be required to use it. Everyone will still report through SO. But for those of you who sign up for pilots, when we reach out and kind of move all of the employers through that training, you'll get exposure to the environment. So it's stood up and it's kind of in its final shape. And then we'll go live at phase 2 with all of the functionality, and we'll be using that to report instead of SO, as well as paying member benefits and calculating member benefits out of our new system. So in terms of the length of time for that employer readiness environment, as you can see, we're looking at 18 months. That's our goal at this point. We have finalized a lot of design relative to this particular phase of the project, so keeping our fingers crossed, we will meet our dates and have this environment ready for you in 2019. Any questions so far? Okay. I'm going to go ahead and turn this over to Ellen so she can talk a little bit about the regulatory process.
Thank you. Can you guys hear me? Okay. So up here on the slide is kind of an overview of the rulemaking process, and I just wanted to share with you how we're doing this rulemaking activities kind of in tandem with the project and what the schedule for that looks like, because it involves the new file format. So employers are required by law to submit information to CalSTRS that we need to administer the plan, but the law is sort of ambiguous on what exactly that information and those data elements are. So what we have now is our current file format is incorporated by reference in our regulations so that they carry the full force and effect of law. And we're going to need to update those regulations with what the new file format looks like, including any of those new fields, new allowable values, or fields that have been removed. So this slide showing the rulemaking process is just showing the high-level process that all state agencies have to go through when we update our regulations. We're currently in the very beginning stages. We haven't done anything formal yet, where that preliminary activities icon is. We're reaching out to the affected public, which is you, through the employer readiness team and member account services to kind of engage with you about the new file formats, make sure that there's something that's feasible for you and that works well for you before we take them to our board and start the formal process. So the dialogue that they're having with employers now about the new file format is really essential to ensure that you can make that transition ultimately when we start the formal process. We'd like to have a fairly finished product that everyone's comfortable with. The structural updates that we're proposing are going to go through the rest of that formal process that you see up on the screen. That process ensures that the affected public, as well as other state agencies and the Department of Finance, have a chance to review them and weigh in on the new file formats. So that formal process is going to start when we take the formats to the board in November of 2018. After that, there will be a public comment period. After that, we're hoping to have adoption by the board and have the regulations chaptered in the fall of 2019. And the way that this fits in with the project schedule is that's also the soft launch of the employer readiness environment. So what we're aiming to have is the new file formats chaptered in regulation so that you can have a reasonable level of assurance that this is what, the final is. You can start working in the employer readiness environment, but they won't be enforced, of course, until the new system is up and running. So we're going to chapter them with a future effective date or some sort of trigger that will coincide with the actual go live of the system. So you'll have kind of an extended period after the date that they're chaptered to work within the employer readiness environment and get compliant with those. That's the regulations overview. Does anyone have any questions?
You mentioned you were having meetings with county offices about the file format of the new requirements, some of the new fields that were required. We participated in one of those meetings, and we felt that there was a lot of new information that our system was not currently supporting that was going to be required. So I'm wondering if you have any feedback from the other county offices that you have met with and what that feedback has been from everybody else.
That outreach effort is primarily being led by our employer readiness team and member account services, so I'll defer to them to answer how we're kind of being flexible around the feedback that we get.
Yeah, hi, good afternoon. I'm John Hammond. I work really closely with the employer readiness team. And so we have been reaching out and getting feedback. May I ask what county or district you're from?
Riverside?
Riverside, okay, thank you. So we have, the way that we're going to be approaching at this point, is we have some webinars that are coming up in a couple weeks, and we're going to start the conversation about the fields and values with all employers. And so that those announcements will be on SO. And so you can log in and be part of those webinars, and so you can hear the conversation about the fields and values and about the information and provide us feedback at that time. So we're right on schedule. Your question is perfectly asked. So just look out for those webinars.
And I'd like to add one of the things. So recently I was at a conference where a number of different pension funds from across the U.S. were met to talk kind of about technology and system implementations. And Texas teachers went live with the first phase of their new system in the fall of 2017. And one of their big lessons learned was around their new file format and the challenges that their employers have had reporting. So your question's really timely, and one of the big lessons that I feel like I learned as a result of attending that conference is, we're only as successful as all of our stakeholders are, and so I really encourage you to kind of engage in this process and give us the feedback, because to the extent that we know that we need more information in order to, again, meet the mandates of GASB and our auditors and, sort of the new reporting environment. But we also realize that, you only have so much capacity and that you're going to need to make system changes too. So we want to be as thoughtful and careful as possible in terms of what we ask for. So it's really critical that we get that feedback from you, because to the extent that, this just isn't possible, or this is going to be onerous, or we need more time. Those are the kinds of things that we need to hear from you in order to incorporate that into our schedule. Okay. Thank you, Ellen. Any other questions? Go.
I was going to say, I'm from the same county, and we're in the same boat. We have a homegrown system for all of our school districts in our county, and we own it in-house, and it's our staff. And we're in the process right now of updating the entire system to a web-based system, because it's
fun times.
We're in the same boat you are.
Yep.
So adding this change that we did have one meeting to talk about what the requirements might look like. What we heard during that meeting was it would literally change the way that we do business in our personnel system. And so it's a massive change.
Okay.
So we were just curious if they were, because I feel like we were kind of on the front end of that, those conversations. So I just wasn't sure. I think Anna's real question was, did you hear the same thing from other pilot districts or counties, that this would be a huge undertaking?
Yeah, we did. And so we have that. We've collected all that. I'm not sure if we received feedback directly from you. You did, okay.
We had a phone conference.
Okay, wonderful.
Yeah,
Great,
yeah.
great. So we have collected information. So with that information from employers, it's helping us mitigate and make better decisions about the new file format. So we still have to move forward with the new file format. And it was back in 2016 spring, I think, is when we really started initiating about the fields and values. Got a lot of feedback, and then it caused us to take a different approach. And so we made decisions based on that feedback. And so what you're going to be presented with at the end of this month at the webinars is kind of the the revision of those fields and values that you saw maybe 2 years ago, I think is what you're referring to.
Actually,
So-
it was just like 2 months ago.
Okay, 2 months ago, great.
Yeah.
So it's a very fluid situation right now. Decisions are being made. We're working with our contractors, and what values, what fields, and how are they going to interact together. So all those conversations are going on right now, and so employer feedback has been a real driving point to how we're going about it. So we're going to present to you kind of our approach in a couple weeks. If you can make sure you're on that webinar, and then take a look at what we've done, and then give us feedback there, and then we can continue the conversation. So we still have time to talk it through. And now that we know you're Riverside, I'm going to follow up with you after this session here.
These are the days that the homegrown system is not so helpful. It'd be nice if we were on everybody was on Escape or something.
Right.
Yeah.
Vina?
I'm just requesting, is it possible to get draft of the file format? Because when we have meetings after a couple of months, sometimes you can't think of everything was on that file. Is it possible to get the draft to review it before the webinar so we are more
I'll let
familiar?
John answer that.
Yes, the answer to the question is yes. So we're going to have, so when the announcement on SO is going to be out, we're also going to send out emails, making sure all employers have the opportunity to log into the webinar. We have several that are scheduled out through the week of the 21st of May. And so in that email, there will be the draft of fields and values. So you'll be able to look at it before we talk about it. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
And again, keep that feedback coming, because I want to make sure that we're applying lessons learned from other systems, and listening to the employer community is definitely something that I feel like personally I have learned. So, okay, I think I'm going backwards. Now we'll go forward. So, like we've been talking about, we'll be conducting ongoing outreach through the employer forum and through webinars. We'll also be giving you regulatory updates as we go through the process. These are the feedback opportunities, of course, right here in the Employer Advisory Committee. I'm going to be turning my role over to Christine Briseño, who is the director over our Employer Services or Member Account Services Division. So you'll see a little bit more of her, a little bit less of me, but we're both working very closely together on this project, especially around the employer functionality. And then, whatever other opportunities you feel like you need. I know that the employer readiness team and our training teams are going to, in the next 6 to 12 months, start coming out and working with you, especially as we next year go live with our soft launch or employer readiness environment. So there will be a lot more opportunities for feedback and training coming forward. And again, please engage with us. So if you have any questions or comments based on what you've heard, both the employer readiness, the employer readiness email is the place to send your questions. And then if you want someone to come and speak, please go ahead and contact us at the Speakers Bureau and make your request, and we'll identify the appropriate person. So with all of that, are there any final questions? If not, thanks very much, and we'll move on to the next thing.
Is this retirement readiness? Yeah. So, Sandy Blair with Retirement Readiness.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. I was here, 7 months ago and kind of talked about our path forward with education and our efforts to engage with your employees. And so I want to give you an update on where we are with some of those things and also solicit your help. So with that, I want to share with you this new member video that we have worked on and developed. So I'll share it first, and then we'll talk about how we can use this together. Oh, sorry. I guess I can't do that.
So CalSTRS is a retirement company, a retirement place. Yeah?
As far as I know, they manage a teacher's retirements. Which part? I don't know. Just getting hired, I'm kind of getting used to that and getting into that.
I think that they help me with my retirement plan. Welcome to the California State Teachers Retirement System, better known as CalSTRS. Don't worry if you're not sure what CalSTRS is or what we do. That's why we created this short video. Hi, I'm Jenna, an educator from Central California. When I first started teaching, I wasn't sure what CalSTRS was either. Put simply, we're your retirement plan. We provide retirement benefits to California's public school educators and their beneficiaries. As a new teacher, I know you're busy helping to build your students' futures, but it's just as important to focus on your future, even this early in your career. Your income in retirement is a shared responsibility between CalSTRS and you. As a CalSTRS member, you belong to a hybrid retirement system consisting of 3 benefit programs. First, there's the Defined Benefit Program, which provides your primary retirement benefit or pension. This is a guaranteed lifetime monthly benefit based on a formula, not on the ups and downs of the investment markets or the amount of money you contribute. The formula is simple. It's based on your years of service, your age at retirement, and your final compensation. Each month, you and your employer contribute a percentage of your pay toward your retirement benefits. Your paycheck statement shows exactly how much you're contributing. The second piece of the CalSTRS hybrid system is the Defined Benefit Supplement Program. This is a separate account that provides additional income for your retirement. The funds in this account come from your contributions and your employer's contributions on your earnings in excess of 1 year of service credit. For example, you may take on an outgrowth or extra pay assignment in addition to your regular full-time work schedule, such as a coach or yearbook advisor. The contributions in this account earn interest at a guaranteed rate, and you receive all the funds in this account at retirement. You're automatically enrolled in both of these first 2 programs as a CalSTRS member. The third part of your CalSTRS retirement plan is CalSTRS Pension 2. Pension 2 is a voluntary, defined contribution plan that lets you set aside additional money in a 403(b) or 457(b) investment plan. The reason we offer this third option is that the median CalSTRS retirement benefit will only replace about half of your salary. Pension 2 can help you close any gap between your CalSTRS benefit and your retirement income goal. You contribute to these accounts through payroll deductions that you set up through your employer. You decide how much you want to contribute each month. CalSTRS also provides disability and survivor benefits, but we do not provide health benefits. Also, as a CalSTRS member, you don't contribute to Social Security, so you will not receive Social Security benefits for your CalSTRS covered employment. If you haven't already, activate your My CalSTRS account, the online secure portal for all your accounts. Be sure to review your annual Retirement Progress Report each September. It provides a summary of your service credit and your contributions and interest. Also, visit CalSTRS.com regularly, where you'll find publications and videos that dig deeper into the topics we've outlined here. Take it from me, even as a young teacher, you want to stay informed and engaged with CalSTRS. Your future self will thank you.
Okay, so what do you think of that? So we get so many members that come in to see us when they're getting ready to retire and don't have any idea how their benefit's calculated, what their benefit might be in retirement, and sometimes they are shocked and surprised when they find out what that is. So we have been very diligently trying to work with our under 44s, our new teachers coming into the system, so that we can educate them around what their CalSTRS benefit is. And for all of you, I mean, that's a recruitment tool to have a defined benefit pension as well as a retention tool to keep your teachers, if they're at a critical stage where they think prior to 5 years they may go, and in another year they might be vested. And we want to get this information out to them. And so we're basically requesting your help to partner with us to do that. So with this video, we would like you guys, and some of you might not be the ones we need to speak to, and so I will give you a link later so that you can contact us, but to maybe consider using this video in your new hire orientation, setting that as part of the framework of what they need to watch, just so that they understand what CalSTRS is and where that money's going out of their paycheck and what benefit that has to them throughout their career. With this too, we are developing a new member webpage. So we're looking at doing a career stage direct webpage where we would house career specific information on this web page. So we're going to house this video there, and we would like, if you guys want to partner with us to use this, to give you guys the link to share this page with your employees. We are also available through our member service centers to come to your new hire orientation or at any time to give presentations to your employees. So you just need to contact us, provided we get enough lead time. We will do our best to have staff out there to work with all of you and give general CalSTRS information to your employees. This webpage, I think I shared, those of you who were here a number of months ago, I shared with you a new leaflet that we worked with CTA to develop. This will all align with that. It also will align with our member kits for those specific career stages, really guiding those members. We're also in the early stages of working on gamification type activities that we would also have associated with this, to then maybe they earn badges for completing their one-time death benefit form early, things like that. So we're working at ways to further engage all of your employees so that they can prepare for a successful retirement. We're again going to be sponsoring our Financial Awareness Week. This will be the 3rd year that we have done this event. I'm going to share another video because it's just fun.
How will I spend my future? How will I spend my future? How about a dream vacation in Europe to see the sights? Oh yeah. After we get our youngest out of college, I'm thankful for my health, CalSTRS retirement benefits, and my wonderful family. This is how I'll spend my future.
Take the next step. Join CalSTRS Pension 2 Thursday, July 28th at all member service centers. For details and to sign up
it out over a week. So at our member service centers, at most we will have 2 in a day, but the week of July 23rd, we will have these events at each of our member service centers. We're going to have a number of different workshops and staff there available to answer any general questions for them. We are also looking to expand this the week before, the week of July 16th in Fresno and Humboldt counties. So more information will come out on that. We do a number of email blasts to our membership that are around those surrounding areas. This is a social media piece that we will send out on Facebook, as well as Instagram for people to view to drive attendance towards the event. So we're excited about continuing these types of efforts. And last year we did the first ever new hire orientation day that we did on a Saturday. Again, very successful. We're going to probably break that out over a few Saturdays, the end of September and early October. So any help that you guys can give us, we have flyers if you would like to get those out on our behalf and have them in your offices. We would like to partner with you all to do that as well. It's not moving. Oh. Okay. Also, last time I was here, there was conversation about the Central Valley and, not having as much representation there. I want to let you know and give you an update on where we are with that. We have moved forward with hiring state employees in the Central Valley. They will be in Fresno. We will no longer have our contract with the Fresno County Office of Education, and we will have state employees. We are currently looking for a site for them to conduct services out of. Until that time and that is completed, we will be using the current site on Abbey that we will lease from the Fresno County Office of Education. Then following, we will continue one more year with our Kern contract, and then Kern County will also be absorbed into this Fresno hub that we will have. We're looking forward to this. I think we get a lot of emails and correspondence from members in that Central Valley that don't get that same kind of services, such as Financial Awareness Day, New Hire Orientation Day, and things like that. Due to the contractor nature, so we will have state employees in this hub moving forward, anticipating they will be on board July 1st, and then we have a whole communication plan. We'll be getting that information out as well as to, and once we identify a location and the date that those staff will move to that location, there will be communication around that as well. And we're working very closely with the Fresno COE to make this all happen too. We've also made some great strides in working and leveraging technology for our more remote areas, and this is another piece where we are happy to partner with you. We have done a couple events at school sites, again, more in those remote locations where they have used like a Skype type of technology and had their employees, our members, at different locations where we have done live presentations. So we were live like in a room here, and then those videos were broadcast out to other real-time audiences at different locations where they were able to ask questions and things like that. So, I mean, we continue to look at that technology, especially in our more remote locations where it's more difficult for members to travel to us, and so we continue to explore that. So if you guys have thoughts about that, some of you who are in more remote areas outside of our member service centers, immediate locations, we are certainly willing to work with you around all of that as well. And then we did send out a SO bulletin as well as an email blast, I believe went out yesterday, talking about our 403B Compare website. We have developed a badge, and we again are asking for your assistance to maybe add that badge that is a direct link to 403B Compare, which I think you all know we did a demo for you a number of months ago as well, because of the convoluted 403B marketplace that we have for our educators and school employees, that there's many different vendors, and this is a way that they can compare those products and the fees. And so if you would partner with us as well, maybe posting that badge that gives those employees a direct link to the 403B Compare website, we would certainly like to partner with you all in that regard too. So we have that available. Like I said, the announcements went out. If you guys in this room are not the specific individuals that I need to be speaking to, again, I'm asking for your help to relay this information to those individuals in your HR departments that can maybe help us facilitate that. Any questions, any assistance that you need to do this or to work with us or to request workshops or for us to be with you and maybe get some time at your new hire orientation days, please send an email to our program development team. We will triage those requests to the appropriate member service center. If you don't already have a direct contact at that member center, we will do that for you. And so that would be the email that you guys would send the request. Questions in regards to putting these links on your intranet sites, we will help you with those as well. So just reach out to us and let us know what we can do to help. Do you guys have any questions? Comments? Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Sandy. And let's see. So up next we have, you go by Cassie, right? It's different on the agenda. All right, so we're going to talk about variance reports.
Yes. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Cassie Mallet-Beck, and I'm from the Financial Services Branch. I'm going to talk to you about variance reports today. I do have an expert on variance reports in the room. Mr. Curtis Rogers is in the back to help me, so between the two of us, we're hopeful we can answer any questions you guys may have. Where's my, is it this? Oh, that's going backwards. Is it this? Oh, there we go. I was just going the wrong way. Sorry. So Andrew talked to you guys a little bit about Pension Solution List gearing up and activities that we have going on. So part of what we're doing with that is we are trying to transition you guys off of the variance reports from SO and onto the variance reports within the CAP, the Contribution Account Portal. I know some employers are already using the Contribution Account Portal variance reports, so hopefully this won't be too big of a transition. But effective July of 2018 is when the variance reports will no longer be housed in so you will have to utilize the ones in CAP. Just to give you a reminder, the variance reports in the CAP are dynamic reports. So you go in and you access them when you need them versus they're just put out there. We have made some enhancements based on some employer feedback. We've added a couple things. For example, we added employer totals on one of our, I think two of our reports actually, based on some feedback we received. So we actually really appreciate the feedback and you guys utilizing these reports. That's what helps us gauge how helpful they are, because they are intended to be helpful to you guys. Let's see. This is a chart to kind of help you guys as far as the names of the SO reports versus the names of the CAP reports. This was a chart, I think, that was shared back in 2014 when these reports first were put on the CAP. So these will help you gauge a little bit as far as when you're utilizing them. I was going to go over a little bit of each of them. So the cash variance report, this shows you reported versus calculated on all the variances, shows you any balances due or a refund, and it's at the aggregate level by file. The contribution report by report unit and report media ID are similar reports. It's just you're either pulling them via looking at a specific report unit or looking at a media ID. Again, you'll see everything on here as far as whether there's a difference or not. So when I say difference, meaning reported versus calculated, you're going to see everything on there. And the variance detail report shows, that's one of the reports that we added the employer total by page. It's on there as well as the cash variance report. Again, that's something new that we've added based on employer feedback. This one only shows differences as far as if there's a difference between reported versus calculated. So each of them kind of are used in different ways. There are job aids out there. They're actually on the SO website under, I believe, the reference item tab under user manual and training. There are job aids out there that are like step-by-step how to access them, how to input the criteria so that you're pulling up the correct data. And that's really all I had today. We do have an email address, actually, I wanted to share with you. Normally, if you guys have questions, you normally email the accounts receivable inbox. Just recently, we added a new inbox just for our contributions team. It's at contributions@calstrs.com. Please feel free to have any questions that you have, concerns at this inbox. You can still use the account receivable. It'll get filtered to us, but this is a direct line to us if you have any questions or concerns, and that's on anything related to contributions, not just the variance reports. Does anybody have any questions? Great, thank you. Again, let us know if you have any questions or concerns.
Great, thank you, Cassie. So I think the last substantive item we have is on employer reporting, and we have Marla Newsom. Important information on end of the year, but also, as David Lamoureux mentioned, the 2% at 62 members increase, so you're going to cover that. And take it away, Marla.
Good afternoon. As you've seen, I'm Marla Newsom. I'm from Member Account Services Systems and Data Team. So when your employer representatives say, I'll have our testers take a look at your file, we're the team that actually takes a look at your file. So today I have a couple of things that, oops, that's the wrong one. A few things that we're going to talk about today, and the first one is the fiscal year end. As you guys know, it's a reminder that the files are due by August 13th by 5 p.m. Any files received after that date will unfortunately not be on the members' annual retirement progress reports for that fiscal year. Next, we have the annual updates will be taking place over Labor Day weekend. It's going to start on August 31st at 5 p.m. and usually ends on September 3rd, close of business as well as 5 p.m., so it should be available the next business day. The system will be down during that time as well, so you won't be able to do any reporting or update anything on the Secure and Poor website. Next thing I want to talk about is the contribution reporting. Many of you know that there is an increase with the board of 1% for the PEPR individuals. The contribution rate will be 10.205%. As you know, according to the file specifications, that is 5 placement fields, and our file specification only allows for 4. So what we're asking our employers to do is to report it with either a blank or 4 zeros for those PEPR individuals, okay? So that is to allow for that contributions to accurately calculate right. That field doesn't necessarily is used on the file. It's just for your purposes. Our system actually correctly calculates the right amount. And like Cassie was saying on the variance reports, it will give you the actual amount that is required. One of the things that's going to change also is the good news, is that tolerance is going to change, so you guys can get the files in sooner. So effective July 1st of 2018, the threshold's going to increase from 1 cent to 3 cents, allowing more files to get through. Glad to give you good news, which means that the 078 edits and the 079 edits will only trigger if you exceed the 3 cent threshold, okay? Any questions?
Teresa from Stanislaus. Since we're going to be reporting the rate at either zeros or blank, will they then be 0 or blank on their individual contribution reports that we pull up in SO currently? Because we do use that field as a gauge for
So on the files, they will, if you're looking at the active file you're referring to? On
So
the,
if I pull up an employee and I've reported them all year, is that rate field going to be zeros, or are you going to
it's going to show the accurate contribution rate because our START system actually, our internal system actually uses the correct contribution rate.
Okay, so when I see that report,
it should say 10.205, yes.
Perfect, thank you.
Hi, Renee Lamb from Napa County. I have a question about the file format. So what if we're reporting for a prior fiscal year? Do we still enter zeros, or do we have the rate as it is currently? So like the 9205, because in July and August, we're going to have lines for prior fiscal year, and then for what would be the current fiscal year. So should it be zeros no matter what, or only for 18-19 lines?
So that field is actually not really used. It's only usable for you guys. So if you wanted to distinguish the difference between the two, you can put 9205. But the system is going to calculate the actual contribution amount based upon the service period and the formula for that particular member, and it's gonna give you an edit if you are over that threshold for that particular member. So if that member is a 2% at 60 and you report more than 0.03 for that contribution, it's going to give you an edit. So if you put 0 or if you put 9, if you put 8, it doesn't matter. The system's going to calculate the correct contribution rate of 10.25%.
Okay, so I believe what she asked earlier, because that field, I think when we upload, is uploaded into that person's lines when we go to download their lines from CalSTRS. So if that rate that we make is all zeros, I think it's going to go up there as all zeros. So it won't be visible as to what the rate that we reported.
So are you referring to the REAP screen?
Yes.
So the REAP screen is only going to report what is actually the contribution rate. So it's going to report not what you put on the file, but what the actual contribution rate is.
Okay.
I'm positive. Any other questions?
On this F496 file specification, this is what our software people do, right?
For some, yes.
Because I have no place to put zeros, so.
Okay, so if you want to contact our office and we'll work with your software people to help them understand what's need to be used in that field, we can definitely do that. The field only allows for 4 positions and 10.205 are 5 positions. So if they try to put 10.205, it's going to push out everything else and your file is not going to be accepted into the system. So we want to make sure that they only put 0 or leave it blank for that contribution rate.
Okay, thank you.
FEMA from Orange County. Are you going to be fixing it in next few months, though?
The contribution rate? Or
No, I mean
the file?
File format.
No, we're not. It's not.
It will
it's
be like that till you
until
get
the new
new
file
system.
format. Yes. At this time, that's what the intention is.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, I have a question. So if for the 2% at 62, we can do all zeros, then is it safe to say that we can do all zeros for both? The 2% at 60 and 2% at 62? And then you're saying that when it gets to REAP, it's going to show the true contribution rates?
Yes, it will.
Okay.
REAP is using our internal system that actually calculates the actual true contribution rate and produces that on the REAP screen for you guys.
So for adjustment lines and everything, it's going to show the accurate?
Yes. Even today, some people report zeros on that line. It still gives them the correct contribution rate.
Okay. Hi, Renee from Napa again. I just want to follow up. So I just want to be sure. So I can tell my financial system people to make just all 4 characters for that field zeros, no matter what line it's for what year it's for. It doesn't matter. They can just be blank or 4 zeros, period.
Basically, yes.
Okay.
Other questions? Well, that's all that I had. If you guys have any questions, you can go through the employer help to contact us, and we'll be happy to address any of your questions. Thank you.
Okay. Well, that was an efficient meeting. I think we're ahead of schedule, but this is the time for open forum discussion. Are there questions? Yeah, go ahead.
Hi again, Teresa from Stanislaus. We have some retirees who have come back to work and they're working in a teaching position. They've been retired for several years and have come back. So it's not a 180-day rule issue or anything like that. It's a reporting issue on our part. When that retiree is being paid, we pay them over 12 months, but we report them currently over the 10 or 11 months where they actually earned the work. My question is, because our system, we're having a system issue with reporting that correctly as far as the rate and earnings. Can we report retirees over a 12-month period when they were paid for the work?
Okay, I'm going to say that's a great question and ask somebody along the back wall if you have.
Nobody wants to answer that? No.
I'm loud enough, but. Hi, Nicole Snyder from Member Account Services. Teresa, off the top of my head, and I don't know if I'm just having a memory blank, I don't want to answer that just at this moment. Can I get back to you on that one? And I can make sure I email it out to everybody so everyone can hear the answer. But for right now, no, I'm not even going to go there. Nope, I'll get back to you on that.
Any other questions? Yep, one up front.
Ramona Coker, Stanislaus. I have a question on the proposed language for the the permissive election. When it states that they're going to become mandatory for membership when they meet the service threshold, and it begins the first day of the pay period following the pay period in which the threshold was met, if service is performed for that same employer, and the pay period is in the same year. Does that mean if they meet that threshold in, say, February, and then they don't work again until May, then their membership date would be March 1st. So if they happen to work in other districts in March or April, they're still set up as a non-member because we don't make them a member until they've worked again, correct?
So we're actually going to be looking at clarifying this for you guys. So this was supposed to be in what Joycelyn was talking about earlier in the Technical Housekeeping Bill 1165. We had done a lot of kind of clarification around membership, but because we had to pull one section, we're going to go ahead and pull all of it so we can clarify everything, do a little bit more work with the legislature on that piece. So we're hoping to get it in for next year. That will have actually in the law. But in the meantime, we're looking at doing a directive to really clarify membership and when someone hits thresholds, when they mandatorily qualify. And this is actually one of the things that we are looking to actually really be specific about for you guys, because I know that we have done we've said a couple of different things. One being, if they mandatorily hit that threshold, it matters if they come back to work, and if they come back to work within that same school year. So the idea is, if they hit that mandatory threshold in June, that July is the next year, so it wouldn't count. So we're doing some follow-up conversations with some employers, and I think we'll have something for you in the near future about that to clarify. But in the meantime, right now, how I understand that everyone's been trained is, if somebody hits a threshold, that they become the member as of the next pay period, regardless. Right? Yeah. And that's what we're going to really clarify, but I know that we've trained slightly different in the past.
Right.
So we're just going to make sure that everyone hears the same thing, and you guys are...
Because the other way would necessitate adjustments.
It could potentially, yeah, you're correct. Does that help?
Yes.
Veena from Orange County. I just wanted to find out where I can find... our understanding has been always that PERS and STRS, the reporting is always report as earned. So I couldn't find it anywhere in procedures or law, report as earned under STRS. Can somebody help us with that?
And notice, you're not looking up here. So.
This one's me again. So, Veena, you're not wrong in that we don't have something in the law that specifically states report as earned. It's really in the what's creditable compensation, and that is the way that it's worded is it has to be paid. And when we say paid, we mean that it's potentially actually paid, or it can be contractually earned, right? So it kind of goes back to, I think, was it Teresa's question of, if somebody is contracted to work 10 months, but they're actually getting paid through the bargaining unit, they're allowed to get paid for 12 months, how do we want you guys to report that, right? That's kind of the big issue. I believe in 2011, there was a circular that was out. It's been taken down. It's not actually on our website right now. We're working on an updated one for you. That says that we allow you guys to report as contractually earned. So in that scenario, if they work 10 months but they get paid 12, we're okay with you reporting using the 12-month pay schedule that you guys pay. But sometimes we find that has an issue when the member goes to retire, specifically in their last year. So I'm sure a lot of you have had requests from us that where we've asked you to potentially re-report somebody's last year as they have actually worked it versus what they got paid. And that is just because of our system currently has some limitations that we can't get around, and the easiest way is to just have you guys re-report. Again, we understand that that's an issue, and we're looking at fixing that, especially with the new system. We're already designing for the allowance of you to either report as actually worked, so those 10 months, or as paid, as those 12 months. So you're not going to find something that explicitly says it in the law. It's just that's how we've built our system, our current system, and the new system. So at this point, you're allowed to do either.
So if we are hiring somebody, it's a 11-month employee.
Yes.
But they are starting July 28th and ending in June, let's say 21st. So if the contract adds up to be, let's say, 60,000 together, and we hire them as 12-month, would that work okay? Even though they are supposed to be 11-month employee, but they work like 2-3 days in month of July, and the rest.
If you can send that to me, the specific scenario that you're looking at, because there might be a way to, there's still 11-month as based on the pay periods. So I have to take a look at it. I don't know if I could say yes or no.
Because when it says report as earned, then we have to report something in July.
Yeah.
If we can add that to
it would really
spread it over 11 months, then we are fine.
The generic answer to that is it depends on your pay period. So you could potentially still have 11 pay periods that just happen to cross over months. So we can work with you on that. Just send me an email and we'll touch base.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. On the membership election cleanup on Senate Bill 1165, where it says that the membership now can be as early as the first day of when the employees sign the election. If this bill passes, when will that be effective? Is it going to be effective as when the bill passes, where the employee can make the election?
I'm pretty sure, I don't have the bill in front of me, I'm pretty sure that one is effective when the bill passes. So it will be effective January 1st. So we know that that is kind of off school year for you guys. So if you have somebody that wants to elect membership prior to the bill actually being effective, just contact us and we'll work with you guys on how to have that form filled out and which membership date they should have.
I just wanted to verify because I think I've heard that it possibly was going to be retroactively back to July 1st.
Yeah, I believe that was one of the amendments that was made. We had to pull that retroactive date out. It was causing some issues with the bill. So I believe that if I remember correctly, that got pulled out, that provision to backdate. So it would be as of January 1st, 2019.
Thank you.
And that rings a bell, but I will run it back to the governmental relations team and just confirm. And if it's something different than Nicole's answer, we'll get back to the group on that.
Okay, clarifying question. For the retirement system election form, if you have a substitute that is a member of PERS and STRS, are they allowed to retirement system elect? Is it related to the position, or is it related to the person in the position being a STRS PERS member?
The lovely complicated answer is it's both. So you always want to look at the position in which they are going into to see if it mandatorily qualifies for membership in whichever system it is that job should go to. And if it doesn't meet those qualifications to mandatorily qualify, PERS has a couple of other requirements as well, and Heather Herf is not down here, but she might be listening. I hear you, Heather. So you have to touch base with CalPERS to make sure that it's hitting their mandatory qualifications. But the next question that you would ask is that person that is now taking that job already a member of whichever system it is that they're looking to retain coverage in? At that point, then not retain coverage, that the system, that the position should be reported to. If they are already a member in that system, then those kind of requirements that you kind of go out the door, they're already a member. I think I was listening this morning, and I think Jennifer said something, once a member, always a member in PERS. It's the same type of idea with CalSTRS. Once you're a DB member, it doesn't matter if you take a position that wouldn't normally require, so if you take a substitute position under 100 days, you're already a defined benefit member, so any creditable service that employee works would be required to be reported to CalSTRS. Does that help?
What I'm hearing is, yes, they would get a form if they are in both systems, and then they would have to be reported to STRS, so then they could elect PERS.
In a nutshell, yes. If you have a specific question or a specific scenario that you want to run through, both us and CalSTRS, just go ahead and send us an email, and we'll help identify which is the right system.
Okay.
Other questions? This one up here. Can you come up here? Sure.
Sheila Walker with Tama County Department of Ed. I'm just looking at going to the CalSTRS EFT, and I just have some questions on the electronic payment authorization agreement. I just need to talk to somebody, if somebody's here before we leave. Is there anybody that can help me with that?
Is it, are you asking specific to the bill or to like what you guys would have to do?
No, the agreement form, how to fill it out.
Oh.
We can take that back. I can put you in touch with the right people. It would be our cash receipts department.
Other questions? Well, seeing none, I think some of us will stick around, but in your packet is also the August 8 agenda. Right now, the only things are the standing legislative item and the pension solution update. But if you think of things in the meantime, just write to the Employer Advisory Committee email, and if there's something you want to hear, don't be shy. And I'm sure we will find things that we feel like we need to fill up the agenda with before the August 8th meeting. So, thank you all.